Good morning. This is a video reading. This is a lecture, actually. I'm going to read and briefly analyze a passage from Orwell's 1984. This is a passage on Newspeak, the language which is being shaped by the Big Brother. And the main objective of this language is simply to control the minds of the citizens and to limit their thoughts to the necessary ones. So Winston, the protagonist, is having lunch in the Ministry of Truth cafeteria, and he meets Syme, which is that is a philologist, an expert on the language, that is trying to complete the 11th edition of the Newspeak dictionary. And the passage begins by saying that when Winston turns around, he sees his friend, Syme. But then he reflects on the function of the word friend. He says, well, friend was not exactly the right word. You didn't have friends nowadays. You had comrades. So friend was one of the words which was not necessary during this period because friends didn't exist. You had comrades. Avevi i compagni, non gli amici. And now he talks to Syme and says, how is the dictionary getting on? Said Winston, raising his voice to overcome the noise. Slowly, said Syme. I'm on the adjectives. It's fascinating. He had brightened up immediately at the mention of Newspeak. He pushed his panicking aside, took up his hunk of bread in one delicate hand and his cheese in the other, and leaned across the table to be able to speak without shouting. So this is the setting. There's this cafeteria which is overcrowded. They are having lunch in this pannikin. A pannikin is usually what a soldier uses to have lunch. So it's a sort of pan, a metal one, that is used in the army to fill in with food. So this is what they are used to eat in. And there's a hunk of bread and a piece of cheese. So a very simple lunch. And they have already eaten a pinkish soup, a soup with some pink pieces of meat in it. So his friend, his comrade, is leaning across the table, so he's trying to get closer because he doesn't want to shout. There's too much noise in the cafeteria. I'll go on with the reading now. The 11th edition is the definitive edition, he said. We're getting to the language into its final shape, the shape it's going to have when nobody speaks anything else. When we have finished with it, people like you will have to learn it all over again. You think I dare say that our chief job is inventing new words, but not a bit of it. We are destroying words. Scores of them, hundreds of them, every day. We are cutting the language down to the bone. The 11th edition won't contain a single word that will become obsolete before the year 2050. So Newspeak is not, as the name suggests, a new language. It's simply the desire to cancel the language, to reduce the language to very few words, destroying the language down to the bone, as he says. It's a beautiful thing, the destruction of words. Of course, the greatest wastage is in the verbs and in the adjectives. But there are hundreds of nouns that can be got rid of as well. It's not only the synonyms, there are also the antonyms. After all, what justification is there for a word which is simply the opposite of some other words? So according to him, we don't need synonyms, we don't need opposites. Only one word can simply express thousands and hundreds of words. A word contains its opposite in itself. Take good, for instance. If you have a word like good, what need is there for a word like bad? Ungood will do just as well, better, because it's an exact opposite, which the other is not. Or again, if you want a stronger version of good, what sense is there in having a whole strings of vague, useless words like excellent or splendid and all the rest of them? Plus good covers the meaning or double plus good if you want something stronger still. So all the variety of words related to good or beautiful will simply be limited to good plus good or double plus good. If you want to express the opposite, that will be ungood, as simple as that. So reducing the words to the bone. Of course, we use these forms already, but in the final version of Newspeak, there will be nothing else. In the end, the whole notion of goodness and badness will be covered by only 6 words. In reality, only 1 word. Don't you see the beauty of that, Winston? It was the Big Brother's idea originally, of course, he added as an afterthought. So Zyme is absolutely proud of what he's doing. He doesn't consider that destroying words is a crime. It's a beautiful thing, the destruction of words. A sort of vapid eagerness flitted across Winston's face at the mention of Big Brother. Nevertheless, Zyme immediately detected a certain lack of enthusiasm. Zyme capisce che Winston non sembra poi così entusiasta nei confronti di quello che lui gli sta dicendo. You haven't a real appreciation of Newspeak, Winston, he said, almost sadly. Even when you write it, you're still thinking in old speak. I've read some of those pieces that you write in the Times occasionally. They're good enough, but they are translations. In your heart, you would prefer to stick to old speak, with all its vagueness and its useful shades of meaning. You don't grasp the beauty of the destruction of words. Do you know that Newspeak is the only language in the world whose vocabulary gets smaller every year? Remember that Winston's job is to write for the newspaper, but what he actually does is to change the old reports in order to please the needs of the Big Brother. So Zyme is accusing him of using the old language, of trying to translate the old language into Newspeak, but this is not what Newspeak is, according to him. And then this final paragraph, which is probably the most terrible one. Don't you see that the whole aim of Newspeak is to narrow the range of thought? Questo è l'obiettivo. L'obiettivo di Newspeak è ridurre la gamma dei pensieri possibili. In the end, we shall make thought crime literally impossible because there will be no words in which to express it. Il pensiero criminale sarà impossibile da compiere perché non ci saranno parole per pensarlo. Every concept that can ever be needed will be expressed by exactly 1 word, with its meaning rigidly defined and all its subsidiary meanings rubbed out and forgotten. Tutte le sfumature, via, cancellate. The process will still be continuing long after you and I are dead. Every year, fewer and fewer words, and the range of consciousness always a little smaller. As soon as you cancel a word, of course, you create a huge damage to people's consciousness. I will skip some lines. When he talks about literature. By 2050, earlier probably, all real knowledge of old speak will have disappeared. The whole literature of the past will have been destroyed. Chaucer, Shakespeare, Milton, Byron, they will exist only in Newspeak versions, not merely changed into something different, but actually contradictory of what they used to be. Even the literature of the party will change. Even the slogans will change. How could you have a slogan like "freedom is slavery" when the concept of freedom has been abolished? So he says this is what will happen in the future. By 2050, every single author will be destroyed. And he mentions the best ones, Chaucer, Shakespeare, Milton, Byron. They will all be transformed into a Newspeak version, and by doing this, they will be destroyed. And the same idea of a slogan like "freedom is slavery" will be cancelled, because freedom as a word will not exist anymore. So no one will be able to think about freedom in their minds because the world will not exist anymore. And this is called orthodoxy in the story. Orthodoxy is unconsciousness, he says. So the real accomplishment of the party is to cancel the consciousness of the people's mind. So to erase every thought, every conscious thought, in order to control their mind. This is fortunately something that will never happen in reality, I hope. But this is about the power of language and the power of literature. Okay, thank you for listening, because this was mainly a reading. Anyway, thank you for watching.